Hello and welcome back to our series on Rewrite API. In this video, we'll deep dive into custom rewrite rules. We will learn how to add custom rewrite rules and how we can implement them. Let me give you some examples. Here I have added another function called MLB read write rules and hooked it to an init hook. Custom rewrite rules also need to be added to the init hook. Let me provide some examples and I'll come back to this later. For instance, when dealing with rewrite endpoints and rewrite tags, let me show you how to add custom rewrites. For example, if you need to add the site verification file, like Google Site Verification, there are generally two ways to do it, using a meta tag or using an HTML file. For the HTML file method, you can add the file to your site's folder, making it accessible through your domain. This is a straightforward approach. However, if you have access to your server or hosting, you can also handle this dynamically without adding the actual HTML file. Alternatively, if you are using plugins like Yoast SEO or Jetpack, they offer functionality to add Google site verification codes, embedding the necessary meta tags. But what if you are not using such plugins? Here is an example. Suppose a third-party service requires an HTML file to validate your domain. They will hit a specific URL to confirm the domain's validity. This URL will return a particular code needed for validation. In this case, I use the add rewrite rule function. This function requires three parameters: a regular expression, a query, and a position parameter to specify whether the rule should be added to the top or bottom of the list. In my example, I didn't specify the position parameter, so the rule will be added to the default location. Since this URL is unique, there is no risk of conflicting with other rules. Instead of regex, I used a simple string as there were no additional custom URL parts to match. I added a simple HTML file name, index.php, and assigned a query variable xyz site verify with the value of true. Why is this query variable needed? When a request matches the rewrite rule, WordPress sets this query variable. It helps identify whether the request corresponds to the XYZ site verification.html file. However, simply adding the query variable isn't enough for verification. To enable the rewrite rule, you must flush the permissioning structure. After flushing, hitting the XYZ site verification.html URL initially won't work because WordPress doesn't recognize the query variable yet. This happens because the WP class only sets recognized query variables, and we haven't whitelisted a custom variable. I'm using the parse request method because it is executed by the WP class. If you check the WP class, you will find the parse request method which parses incoming requests, matches them against rewrite rules, and sets query variables accordingly. However, the queryverse public property of the WP class will only include valid query variables, meaning any unregistered variables will be ignored. To illustrate this, let's uncomment the relevant code and comment out the unnecessary parts to print the WP class. Upon refreshing the page, you can see the matched rule is XYZ HTML, along with the matched query. However, the XYZ site verify query variable is missing from the query vars because it hasn't been whitelisted yet. To whitelist this query variable, I used the query vars filter, which is applied in the parse request method. You can locate the query vars filter at the top of the method in the WP class. This filter allows us to add custom query variables to the whitelist, ensuring they are included in the query vars property. After applying the filter, I refreshed the page and now the site verification code is displayed. This is because I registered a callback function on the parse request action. This function checks if the XYZ site verify query variable is set and if its value is true. Since we pass the string true, the function checks against the string and outputs the verification code, followed by an exit. When a third-party service accesses the URL, it will receive this verification code. Similarly, we can use this approach to create custom URL structures and dynamically display any output on the front end, using the add rewrite rule function. If your rewrite rule conflicts with another plugin's rules, you can use the rewrite rules array filter to modify the position of your custom rule. Additionally, you can adjust the execution priority of the filter or callback function to ensure your rule executes after any conflicting rules. For example, If another plugin adds a conflicting rule with the top argument, your custom rule might end up lower in the list. In such cases, changing the priority or executing the filter later resolves the issue. This method ensures conflicts are resolved and your custom rewrite rules function as expected. That concludes this discussion on custom rewrite rules. Thank you and see you in the next tutorial. Chai WordPress.